Welcome to Stage Mom Podcast, a podcast for breakthrough bands and artists. Today we have Dominic DeLaney. Dominic DeLaney is a folk punk artist out of South Florida. Let me tell you, I have the utmost respect for this guy as a person and an artist. He is so far beyond his 28 years, it's unbelievable. His voice is a one of a kind, and you just know who's singing when you hear it. Go check him out on all of his social media networks so you don't miss anything he has to offer.
Oh no, well I've done it again. I'm so fucked up that I can hardly stand. I drank too much, it's time to call up a friend. Maybe they could drive me home.
Yep. Okay, so we are here today with Dominic DeLaney.
Yep.
Okay. So welcome. Thank you for coming. We tried this a couple of times and we kept having to cancel, whether it was me or you forgetting your wife's date. But
Yeah.
didn't want to get you in trouble. So anyhow, go ahead and introduce yourself and let everybody know where you're out of, your name, where they can find you, and we'll start there.
Yeah, so my name's Dominic DeLaney. I'm from Lake Worth, Florida. I'm a singer-songwriter. I guess you could call it folk punk. I kind of stray away from that term because I don't have like somebody playing a bathtub bass or anything like that. But they are punk songs that start out on acoustic guitar, and I've been playing under my own name since about 2018.
That's interesting. Punk songs on an acoustic guitar. I've never heard anybody say that before.
Yeah, I kind of prefer the term campfire punk rock as opposed to folk punk.
Okay.
I don't have anything against folk punk. There's some really great folk punk bands that I like. But they typically have somebody with like a washboard and like a bathtub bass and stuff like that. And I don't have that. I have Rocky Ruckers, my bass player, and then I have Ricky Bolifay on drums. So we are a band. So I try to stay away from the folk punk.
Right. So, is there any well-known folk punk bands that you would compare yourself to?
Yeah, I think I arguably talk about a man named Frank Turner too much. He's by far my favorite songwriter, and his music was kind of a reawakening of my interest in being able to do this. At the time when I started listening to Frank, I had kind of stopped playing music. I was DJing every now and again at some places just to make some money and stay involved in the music scene. But I'd kind of given up the whole band playing guitar thing, and I didn't even really touch my guitar for a while.
Oh, wow.
But then I started listening to Frank, and that's what it was. It was punk songs on an acoustic guitar with the attitude of if I don't have the capabilities to make this big thing or be a giant traveling band at this moment, I'll just go do it myself.
Right.
And that was a very revolutionary line of thought for me. He has another great quote where he said, "If you want a tour, go book one." And like that, like blew my mind. I was like, "You can do that?" And since then I have, and I've done it, quite a bit. So that kind of DIY punk ethos translating into a songwriter format is something that's been really, really cool. So yeah, Frank's definitely probably the biggest inspiration with that. But with that, there's also just other bands like the Gaslight Anthem. Those guys were cool. The Menzingers from Philadelphia. A lot of bands that just kind of have that DIY attitude. That's kind of what I try and align myself with.
Okay. So, all right, you've been playing under Dominic DeLaney since 2018. Did you do anything prior, or how did you become this?
Yeah, I've been playing in bands and involved in music since, middle school and high school. I was in a million bands that had a million different names, but played maybe one show.
Right.
Kind of the typical teenage stuff where band practice was more let's hang out and eat pizza and that type of stuff. Very not organized. And then
Right.
As I got older and into high school, we started to be more organized and play shows, and I had an actual band for a while. But then high school ended, and everybody went off to college, and I decided not to. I decided to keep trying to do music, but now I didn't have a band, and that kind of steered me in the direction of DJing. I had a roommate at the time who taught me how to DJ, actually, like on vinyls, like not like computer DJing, and that was like it's a really cool skill to have, and it's an art form that I still respect, though I don't necessarily listen to that much electronic music anymore. But yeah, I DJ'd for a couple years, from about 18 to maybe like 21, and I had some fun. That type of music scene is a little different than what I was used to and what I occupy now. Right. You know, for my early 20s, it was very fun. But I could, you know, as somebody who's 28 now, looking back, I could see how that. I don't think I want to do that again. Right. Yeah. So, and eventually, you know, it's a very easy thing to get burned out in, and I did. And that's it just kind of happened to coincide that I burned out. I started listening to Frank Turner and started reading other books, you know, like Get in the Van by Henry Rollins.
I love Henry Rollins.
Yeah, and just kind of starting to go back to kind of home base, and it felt like I had this time, you know, experimenting and finding new things, you know, and skills that I still use today, like producing and stuff like that. But it felt like it was time to go back to the roots, I guess. And I'd played in a couple other industrial bands. There was a band around here called Scoros. I played with them for a while. And then that's when it was just like, well, I have this collection of songs, and I don't have a band, so I'm just going to do this as Dominic DeLaney. And since then, it's been pretty good. I've played 343 shows since then. That's another ode to Mr. Frank Turner. He counts every show that he plays.
I was just going to ask. I think that's neat that you do.
Yeah, I liked that idea a lot. The first 100 shows, we had a Polaroid picture for every show, and I still have those.
That's cool.
And then, yeah, it's evolved a little bit to now, like, there's like the every show gets its Instagram post, you know, with the show number and stuff like that. And if you go to my website, there is a list of every show. And yeah, it's a cool way to kind of see where I've been because of music, you know, especially when I'm listing dates and states are changing, you know. It's like, oh, music took me to this place. And so that's been really cool. And then, yeah, we just played a show for St. Patrick's Day, and that was show number 343.
That's awesome that you do that. I love that. I'm going to make my kid do that. That's a really good idea. Okay, so you talked about producing. Do you produce your own stuff? Like, tell me about your recording process.
So, after I stepped away from DJing for a while, I kind of was very hands-off when it came to production work. The first EP that I did was just an acoustic EP, and that was done by a man named Rick Pattinson, who is here in Lake Worth, and he just kind of has a studio at his house. And he let me come over, and I think the whole thing maybe took an hour, and they were just very basic vocals, acoustic guitar. And that was kind of just to have something out there to kind of show people, like, hey, I have original songs, let me come play on your shows. And started opening shows that way. And then when COVID happened, I really wasn't focused on recording too much. I was kind of more focused on doing shows and doing tours, and I was doing them solo, and it was working. And I always wanted the band, but that just seemed kind of so far off in the distance. And then COVID happened, and I had this one connection from a charity show that I had done down here, and he was getting involved with some label they were trying to start up, and it was this whole thing. And pretty much they asked if they could make an album out of my songs, and I was thrilled to do that. They kind of hired studio musicians to play, and then that's when the first album came out. And I have a lot of mixed feelings on that entire situation. It was working with a label that wasn't the best as far as their morals go and things like that. So It was definitely a big learning experience, but the one thing that I can be grateful for is that when they put that album out, it forced me to put together the band and do the work because the shows had to happen. And, we had a first iteration of what is now my band, Dominic DeLaney and the Dead Language. And right now we have kind of a trio version of it that we took up to New York and that we've been taking around a bit. But yeah, that whole situation was a little odd, but it got the music out and it kind of lit a fire under me. A lot of those songs we don't play the same way anymore. And pretty much that album came out. We did a couple shows. I continued to do a lot of solo shows. And then at the end of 2021, at the beginning of 2022, I went and got sober and decided that I was going to come back, and I had already made my mind up that now that I'm sober, that just means I have to go harder into this. Right. And that's when I came home, and during about like a 2-week, 3-week period, I wrote my latest album, For Life, and that one was produced by Ricky Boulofé, who plays drums for me. He's also the frontman for The Shake.
I was going to say, his name,
Yeah, lead singer, guitar player. Yep. Frontman's a weird word. But, yeah, we're great friends, and, Ricky's a sober guy, and he was kind of a role model in my early sobriety. Like, I'm happy to say that I'm over a year sober now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, he was a great person to lean on. And then me and The Shake, we did a lot of touring together last year as well, where I would open the shows acoustic, and then they would go on. And it was I started tour managing for them as well. So it's a great working relationship that we have.
Nice.
This year is kind of the first year since we've all met that we're going to be touring in different parties. And it's a little weird. Like in May, they're going to be in Texas while I'm in California. And like we're trying to plan like a Zoom date so we could all still meet up and stuff. But yeah, so Ricky's been a huge hand. Rocky Rucker also co-produced my latest album with Ricky. And we're still working on some new stuff as well. But right now, I mean, the difference between somebody who just puts a whole bunch of money behind recording and just 3 good friends getting in a room and doing it is staggering. So
it is.
This last album, For Life, I'm really proud of it. I'm proud of the work that Ricky and Rocky did. I'm proud of the songs. And I'm proud that we did it ourselves. These days, like I literally just got this. I haven't really figured it all out yet, but this is essentially what the album was made on.
Wow.
We sat in a room and recorded and just mixed and mastered. And that way of working is something that I really like. It's really nice to go into really cool studios that are wood paneled and there's a guy with a big chair and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's not necessary all the time. So
no, my daughter, she's releasing her next song on the 31st of this month, and she literally just went to the car with her boyfriend last night to mix it.
Yeah.
And like the car, she's like, we just need a quiet space, Mom. I'm like, okay.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And so like that accessibility is revolutionary. Ricky and I go back and forth pretty frequently about the debate on albums. I am a huge supporter of albums. I have my vinyl stack right here, and when I want to listen to an album, I put it on and I listen to the whole thing. I flip it over in the middle and I enjoy my time. That's not the world we live in anymore.
Right.
It's Spotify and iTunes and Amazon.
And I hate that. I mean, I love the albums, and yeah, like it's just so much different now.
It's definitely a conundrum because I think like if you go back and if you listen to For Life, like my latest album from front to back, there's a pretty clear storyline. Like the songs are in order on purpose.
Right,
We didn't just throw them at the wall. And those are some of my favorite albums, the ones that you just put on. It tells you a story. So there are plans to have For Life put on vinyl. One of the big problems is getting them made is so cheap or so expensive.
So expensive, yeah.
So that's a conundrum. I mean, I used to have a stage joke for people that would buy CDs. I would tell them, even if you don't listen to it, it's a great coaster. You know, and that's something that I'm pretty well aware of. Like when somebody buys a CD, I'm kind of aware that you might put it in your car. You might put it, if your car has a CD player, you might put it in and listen to it. But other than that, I pretty much know that you won't. And that's kind of it's something I understand people want to buy them and show support, and I appreciate that. But I want to give you something you're going to use.
Right.
You know, that's where like the T-shirts and hats and stuff. That's kind of more the way to go until we can get the vinyl.
Right.
So, yeah.
So it's funny. Like my mom just bought a new car. It doesn't even have a CD player in it. I'm like, wow, this is just crazy.
Yeah.
And then it's like all these bands that I talk to, they're doing cassette tapes again now. And like, we're going to have to redo the cars. These new cars next year are probably going to have, you know, it's going to go back to 8-track soon. Yeah. It's crazy.
We just did, and this is something that Ricky has spearheaded, the Long Live the Scene cassette tape.
Oh, nice.
These have, so what we do is we bring our mixer to every show that we play, and we record the shows.
Ricky was telling me about that.
Yeah, it's an amazing idea they did. And it kind of started just by him doing it to record the Shake shows and go back and listen to them.
Yeah.
And then he put this together, and this has been great. It's got Billy Doom is Dead, this band Fwacata, My Band's on it, The Shake, Buck Stops Here, Eastway. Really great bands on this first volume, and you know, some of the plans that we have for Long Live the Scene are really, really cool, and that's kind of it's a great way. We thought about, so we just had show 343 shows ago, and we have it recorded, and we were talking about possibly putting it out, maybe putting it out on cassette. You know, I don't know if I'm gonna do it yet, but doing this stuff with Long Live the Scene has been awesome in the aspect that it just keeps you involved and plugged in with all these other bands, and you can kind of get to work with everybody, and it does feel like a scene again. Whereas, you know, there were some points when I first came into this music scene again in 2018 where it was kind of sporadic. It was kind of like sometimes you'd get support, sometimes it was the opposite. So that's kind of what I think the goal is mainly with Long Live the Scene, is to keep a healthy music scene that is continuing to put out new good music and stuff like that. So that's something I'm really happy to be a part of.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing. And I have, like, being a part of the scene even before I started my podcast and my events. I was part of it because my daughter's band, and it's really come a long way since, I mean, I've been at it with her since 6-7 years. So it's come a long way since she started too. I hope it keeps growing and growing. And I hope one day we come in contact with someone that we're going to hear on the radio, or something great happens for them.
Yeah, definitely. And Ricky has a great song. It's called Nashville, where it's pretty much about how people always come up to musicians down here like, oh, you should go to Nashville, or you should go to New York or LA. It's kind of like, well, I think I like it here, you know? And I like these bands around here. I think we have a great scene. You know, it's tough, I think, with the amount of venues that are allowing original music to happen in their facility. Since it's so limited, that's where it starts to create the problem of too much supply of bands, and that, you know, that's something that COVID definitely didn't help, you know, with, you know, a lot of venues had to go under. Churchill's went under, although I honestly don't know if that was COVID related or just nonsense related.
Well, I always say that COVID started in that bathroom, so.
Exactly. You know, but it's just losing those spaces and the strain that is still on the ones that exist. You know, like Propaganda Lake Worth has kind of been my home for 5 years, where I've, you know, been welcome there every night. I used to spend probably too much time there. You know, but I remember during the pandemic when they were locked down, you know, they were doing fundraisers, and we did, this is actually how Ricky and I met, was, we did a virtual benefit for propaganda, and we raised somewhere like, I think we raised something in like 5 digits, like $10,000 or something like that.
Whoa, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. And that's something that I, like when I go back there, like it's something that I take a lot of pride in. That, you know, this is something that I care about very deeply,
right.
and I'm happy that I was able to help, you know, the way that I was.
So you mentioned something that triggered a question that I was going to ask, and I forgot. How do you feel about covers? Like, do you like playing covers, or?
I definitely have reservations when it comes to covers. I do play like the 3-hour gigs and stuff down here when I'm not like on the road or anything, or playing original shows, because it pays the bills, and that's just kind of the nature of being down here. It's interesting, you know, that we toured up in the Northeast, and we were in Long Island, and Ricky was talking to the promoter there and said, "Man, all these venues, I would make so much money here doing my cover shows." And the guy said, "No." He's like, "We only really do original music up here."
Wow,
like,
interesting.
And that was mind blowing to us.
Yeah.
You know, you're telling me I wouldn't have to play Sweet Caroline? Like, that'd be amazing. So that's something that there's actually a song I'm working on right now that deals with kind of that dilemma of, if my music is I don't want to say appreciated more, but accepted in more venues,
right?
And paying gigs where I don't have to play covers. If that's somewhere else, that puts me in a bit of a spot.
Right.
Now, I don't mind playing cover gigs. Most of the cover gigs that I do down here are a lot of breweries, and the owners are really cool when it comes to my song selection. And I feel that I'm booked specifically because I don't play Sweet Caroline. I don't do Margaritaville.
Right.
If you want that guy, there's quite a few. I'm not one.
Yeah, there is.
I play songs that I like, and that's the biggest thing. You know, everything in life comes down to fun. If you're having fun while you do it, that's all that matters. So,
right.
And that's where I do play some crowd pleasers. Like, I play "Hey Ya" by Outkast, but I do it my way, and I have a lot of fun.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of Frank Turner covers. Sometimes I get people with the question of like, "Oh, is that an original?" And then you gotta be like, "No, it's this other guy." But so that's, I mean, my biggest thing, I guess my rule of thumb when it comes to covers is I can't play a song that I don't like.
Right.
Part of me has
because
to
that'll go
like
through. It'll show. It will show.
Like I saw somebody just recently, and they were doing like a Justin Bieber cover.
Oh Lord!
And I had seen this person in like a hardcore band, and I was like, "You were dying inside. I'm watching this." And yeah, so it's something that I you know, maybe in a couple, maybe 2 years when I turn 30 and bills seem to be bigger, maybe I'll start playing Sweet Caroline. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yeah, there was the one Simple Man. Oh my God, that would give my daughter's band twitches. They would be like, "Oh no, scream it one more time. I'm walking off the stage." Actually, the bass player screamed back, "You play it." It was like, oh my God. So okay, so tell me about your songwriting process. Like, you said you're sober for over a year now. Did that play a role in a lot of your songs that you've written? Yeah,
Ricky asked, we did a songwriter night, and Ricky brought up the great question of how getting sober specifically affected my songwriting. Yeah. And my answer was, I look back at my catalog prior to getting sober, and there are songs that are just essentially about excess, and there's quite a few of them. But even while I was still not sober, the songwriting was starting to evolve away from that. And I think that's because even then I was conscious that I didn't necessarily want to repeat myself. And it's a little bit, it's kind of the same when it comes to getting sober. There's quite a few songs on For Life being one of them, that are about being sober or getting sober. And I feel like I've written those now. So the next album doesn't necessarily need to be about that. Right. But I'm sure it'll bleed into things that I write. one of the things that I actually kind of just did today was I always felt that I would be able to still kind of write from that mindset of somebody who isn't sober or decided not to get sober. And so today actually I wrote a Christmas song because the best time to write a Christmas song is in March.
Right.
And it's a very crude Christmas song about maybe having a few too many at Christmas. And, so writing from that point of view is still available. That's kind of really important to me. Not to always dwell on a past of intoxication, but to kind of be able to put myself in different shoes before writing something.
Right.
So I try not to analyze my songwriting too much because I don't want to. I'm like scared to break something almost.
Yeah, I get that.
But I'm kind of I guess I would be considered old school. Like I don't really write too much on my phone. I do I have a leather journal that when I'm traveling comes with me, and that's kind of where ideas can go. I kind of like the process of like you write something down and decide something's better, so you gotta like scratch it out. I like that a lot. And I think it's Keith Richards has a quote where he was saying being like a creative person is just kind of having your antenna up and waiting for like something to strike. Right. And so that's what, I think, it's like arts and crafts. Like there's the art side, which is getting the lightning to strike. Then there's the craft side, which is putting it into a song. And the craft side you can work on. So as you continue to write songs, the process of taking the lightning strike and converting it into a song starts to get easier. And you have methods that work and things like that. So that's really all I do these days is I try and just be prepared for the lightning strikes. So I do have some voice memos where it's me humming in the bathroom, something like that, and then you get home and you write it down. And then nowadays, in the early days of when I was doing my own demos to send to Ricky, they were very bad. It was essentially just a voice memo, and maybe I'd be like smacking something. These days, now I'm a little more professional. I have actually over here I have my guitar rack where I have like my acoustics, my electrics. I can run them into my system and record proper demos and stuff like that. And that kind of is all part of the COVID stuff too. It was just like, well, I might as well learn how to do this.
Exactly. Nothing else to do.
Yeah. And it's been revolutionary when it comes to songwriting because it gives me, I can start a song and be like, all right, I've got a great first verse, a great chorus. Let me just record it as if it's a song. And then I'll just write it when it's done, That's been an amazing tool when it's come to my songwriting.
So I would be interested in knowing, because I can only imagine how frightening it was when you made the decision that you were just going to become sober. How you felt, like, were you scared that your songwriting was going to go super south? Were you nervous that, like, if I'm sober now, I'm going to sound like shit, or this is going to be awful? Like, I can only imagine, like, because I know it plays games on your mind to begin with. And that's probably something that really grabbed onto, like, you're not going to be as good as you are today if you don't do this. Yeah,
and there was also a question that I had to ask and answer honestly to myself. Do I want to be in this for the music, or did I want to be in this for the party? And that's something that you have to be very honest with. Very good
question.
Yourself.
Yes.
And
such a good question.
And it was something that I sat with for a while. And while I did enjoy a lot of the excess, what it always came back to was I still remember being the 13-year-old kid in his room with a guitar. I didn't really have like a bunch of friends or anything, so I would just sit in there and write songs by myself. And back then I didn't care what anybody thought of the songs. I didn't care about how many streams they got or anything like that. I just enjoyed the process and I enjoyed playing them. And when I thought about that, that kind of told me, I was like, this is, I think, going to be okay. And I actually, like, when I got sober, I did the whole thing. Like, I went to a treatment center with doctors and stuff like that. And, when I came back home, I think that weekend I had a show at Prosperity Brewers.
Oh my God. Talk about throw yourself to the wolves.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So it was kind of like, I remember like on the flight home kind of thinking like, we'll see, you know, this is kind of going to be it. And it was there was a part of me that was like, I'm going to have to make a decision after tonight of if I think I can continue in this world of music, you know.
Sober.
And yeah, sober, because, you know, in the music industry, a lot of the times at venues, alcohol is more readily available than food. You know, they don't give you a meal ticket. They give you a drink ticket.
Yeah.
And that was something that I had to sit with for a while. And, you know, I had a therapist at the treatment center and she was not thrilled about it. But I kind of knew that I had to figure this one out for myself. And when I came back, you know, like I was never a person, like some people say they drink or use other things to deal with stage fright or give them some confidence. I never really had stage fright. So that wasn't something I was worried about, but coming back and kind of just it's like from Talladega Nights when Ricky Bobby's just like, I don't know what to do with my hands. And that was a real thing for a while. And that was really I had a huge crutch and all of my friends make fun of me for it, but there's the water company, Liquid Death. And I absolutely love Liquid Death. I don't have any today because they sold out. I probably bought them all already. But pretty much they come in a can. And so, like, this is a San Pellegrino, but it came in a can, and so it just gave me something to do with my hands. And I could stand at the merch table and talk to somebody, and it wouldn't feel weird. And so that was a huge crutch.
That's smart. Yeah, that's huge. I remember I quit smoking, and I was a heavy smoker. I smoked for nearly 30 years, and I quit cold turkey. I knew if I was going to quit, I had to do something drastic. And so I promised my daughter I will never have a cigarette again. I wanted one. I still want one today. And it's been 14 years. And I was like, I detoxed for 2 weeks. I was the worst person to be around for 2 weeks. But the whole, what do you do with your hands thing? It was like, I found that the hardest part was the first everything. Like the first time I drove the car without a cigarette. The first time I had a soda without a cigarette. The first morning I woke up and what the hell am I going to do? Because usually I go and have a cigarette first. Now I mean, after dinner, the first, everything, it was all the firsts. And once I got past those firsts of everything that I had done for almost 30 years, then it was okay. But yeah, no, it's a huge thing that you've done though. Like that's like, I have so many people in my life that still are trying to succeed at sobriety. My ex-husband is still trying to and that led to our divorce. So it's a huge thing that like, you gotta like, you're very proud of yourself for that. 'Cause not many people do it.
Well, and it's something that, you know, I'm very, I grew up with parents. Well, my mom, was also a recovering alcoholic, and, I kind of knew the downsides of if I didn't get this figured out.
Right.
And that's kind of where even today, you know, I'm not complacent in my sobriety. I'm never, the reason it's called recovery, they always say, is because it's a process and you're still doing it. You're not recovered.
Right.
You know, and so it's something that I take into account. I've been relatively lucky as far as situations I've been in, that may have proved, detrimental to my sobriety. One pops out. We were on tour in Texas, and luckily I was with the Shake for this tour, and, we were in the backstage area of this venue, and one of the local bands comes in, and just immediately it's just me and him, and he just looks at me, pulls out a bag, and asks if I want some. I said no and kind of ran out and was very uncomfortable. I was very uncomfortable for the rest of the night, and Akila, the drummer from the Shake, came up and kind of told me, he's like, hey, there's a secret green room, like one that the other band doesn't know about. Let's go put all our stuff in there. And so we went into this other room, and it was bigger and cooler, and and it was away from them too, so I kind of got to hang out there all night instead. But other than that, I haven't really had too many instances of things possibly going wrong. A lot of people have been super supportive. Most people have been super supportive. And yeah, kind of right when when the Shake and I started to tour, that was another test. You know, it was another test of what is touring sober.
Right.
You know, because I was definitely a person who had the late nights and stuff like that, and I wasn't used to being responsible or being an adult, really. You know?
Grown up, yeah.
Yeah, because being on tour is just arrested adolescence.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very easy to consider yourself, you know, like a pirate just rolling through town, and you mess stuff up and you go roll through another one. But now, like, coming back, I remember one of the big things, it wasn't the reason I got sober, but one of the big things was we had played a show in Daytona, and it was very bad, and it was because of me. And Ricky sent me a message the next day, and it wasn't screw you or you're a terrible person or anything like that. All the message said was, if this is the level of professionalism that you're going to have, I can't be a part of that. And I remember professionalism stuck out to me. I was like, shit. Or, you know, that's not great.
I screwed up.
So,
yeah.
That's when I came out and I started to tour with the Shake again, and they asked me to tour manage them. Professionalism is number one. You know, we're on time. We're prepared, you know, and just that takes discipline, and it definitely takes discipline because it's very easy in cities, you know, New Orleans or Austin or New York City. It's very easy to have a late night. And you know, even sober, it's very easy to have a late night in those cities, and you have to be disciplined. You can't go around yelling all night. You gotta take care of your body and be prepared because you are doing a job. And that was another, you know, that was a thing that took a while for me to understand, and it's taken a while for some other people that are close to me to understand, is that when I go on tour, it's not a vacation. Right. It's not like a rolling bachelor party. It is a job, and you have to be good at your job.
It's true. It's true. So since 2018, since you started going, you know, by the Dominic DeLaney project here, what is the best decision you think you've made?
We've already talked about getting sober, so I'll say other than that.
Other than that, yeah.
Let's see. Best decision I've made. Deciding to release For Life independently. Okay. That was big. The label that I had problems with, they wanted it, and I said absolutely not. After the things that happened with the first label, it just wasn't worth it to me. And that album has brought, and you know, it was released in September, and since then it's brought so much more than, you know, I could have imagined, just in the aspect that now we're playing this live as a full band. It sounds just like how it did on the album when we play it live, which the first one didn't. And people are relating to it. People like these songs, and I'm told that these are the best songs that I've written, and that's something
fantastic.
It's something that's very validating, and definitely wants to. I want to continue down that road of improvement. You know, some of the songs, I think the subject matter is very universal. Maybe it's in Florida, like Delray is the rehab capital of the world, and so I think that there is some sort of exaggerated relatability when it's played down here. I think people understand a lot more what I'm talking about because it's so localized. Right. You know, and then there's other songs. There's a acoustic song that will be a full band song, but it was acoustic on the album, called F Florida, and you know, it's people see the title and they get very upset, and they're like, how can you say that about your state? But if you go and you listen to the song, it's really a love song to Florida. I
noticed you have a hat that says F Florida, and
I do. I do. And
it's
so
a pretty cool hat.
Thank you. We'll be having a lot more of that merch because we are recording a full band version, and we're going to release that as a single and stuff like that. But yeah, people get very upset when they just hear that out of context. Somebody actually commented on the post when that picture of the hat was up and was very offended.
Really?
And I just kind of linked the song, and and left it at that. Yeah, and that's where, I mean, like, one of the things about traveling so much, like last year, I traveled 16,413 miles, and people know I'm Floridian when I go somewhere,
right.
and I don't know how, but there's some sort of telltale sign that I am from Florida, and and people
Are you
pick
a native?
up on it. Yeah, born and raised.
I am too. Yes.
Yeah. So people know. I don't know how,
That's
but
funny.
They just. I always get asked about like Florida man stories. Like, is that a real thing? And I was like, yeah, Florida man. He's a hero.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, so what was your favorite tour that you've been on?
The favorite tour I've been on. Well, we did one. It was me and the Shake last September, and it was called the Two Porta Tour. And for that one, we brought Justin Hucker, who runs Live Music Community up in Gardens, which is like a great music school for kids. They do like kind of like donation-based events for instruments and stuff like that. But he runs that, and he came on that entire tour to film. And we're putting all those videos together for a bit of like a little docu-series on.
Oh, nice.
That'll be on the Shake's YouTube, and it should be coming out, I believe, in May.
Awesome.
But it was just a great time. It was my first time doing an East Coast tour.
Right.
So we did South Carolina, North Carolina, D.C. We were in Baltimore, Philly, New York, Long Island, and then we were supposed to do Boston, but things got really crazy, and it's all on video. And
I'll definitely watch it.
Yeah, and so like when we did it, and this doesn't spoil too much of it because it was pretty well known, but on the way home on the tour, we had to race the last hurricane we have. I think was it Hurricane Matthew, I think, or I can't remember what it was called, but this last hurricane that we had last September, we were in Long Island the day before it was hitting.
Okay.
Like we had like 17 hours to make it to Florida.
Oh my God.
And I remember 2005. I remember hurricanes messing this place up. Mm-hmm. And you know, everybody kind of had that bravado on the way home of, just a hurricane, we have them all the time. And I was like, I agree, but we were also on that tour, we were in an RV. Uh-huh. and my parents are teachers here in Palm Beach County, and I was telling them, I was like, guys, like, if the winds are over 35 miles an hour, we can't be on the road with this. Like, right. It's the same reason they don't let school buses go.
School buses, they'll
tip over. And everybody's like, oh, I've never heard that. I was like, no, I swear. And so we kept going, and we raced this hurricane, and like we were checking I was in the co-pilot seat, Ricky was driving, and we were checking the hurricane update like every 3 hours or whatever it is, and there were some times where it was pretty sketchy, and like the worst was right when we got into Palm Beach County. We were the only thing on 95.
Oh,
and
goodness.
It was so bad that like you would blink and we would be in a different lane because the wind blew us over.
You're kidding. I would be so scared.
It was terrifying.
Oh my God.
And by this point we had to tape like every drawer in the RV closed, because every time we would hit a turn they would like shoot open. Mm-hmm. And I remember like kind of like sitting, and I was like, the knife drawer is like right next to me. Like,
no.
Flip, this thing is just gonna impale me. And luckily we made it home. A couple scratches, but other than that, totally fine.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was a wild adventure. It
makes for a great story.
That's where all we could say the entire tour was like, we're so glad we picked this one to film.
Right.
Yeah, it was great. And then since then, this year I started. I've already done one, but I'm planning on doing 4. Okay. I've decided to do tours by Amtrak train.
Oh my gosh. That's going to be super cool.
So we did one up north. We in January we went up to this studio called Least of All in Brooklyn. And they did like this like direct to vinyl recording thing. So we got like these vinyl singles from them. And they're really cool.
Oh my God.
Clear.
Whoa.
Yeah,
I love
really cool.
that. So they recorded it directly to vinyl?
Yeah, so each one is a single. So there's one song on each record. I have a couple. Well, I have this one, and then I have some secret ones.
That's really cool.
But yeah, so like we did like a pre-order thing, so people were able to pre-order them, and least of all mailed them out after we recorded up there. But once we started to plan that, I was kind of like, well, I don't want to go all the way up there just for the recording, as great as it is. And that's like, I had the idea for the Amtrak tour for a while, and I was like, I think this is the time to try it. And so the way it worked was we went up for 3 days to play a couple warm-up shows in New York and then do the recording. And then we had one final full band show in New York and Brooklyn that was amazing. And then Rocky and Ricky flew home, and I continued on solo. And I went to New Haven, Connecticut. I went to Brunswick, Maine. I went to Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and Boston, Massachusetts, and did it all by train. And it was I'm editing a video series of that as well. The first one's already on my YouTube. It was something I'd never done. Like, I didn't get to go on like that 5th grade school trip that everybody goes to DC where they take the train. I didn't get to do that. And so I'd never been on any train other than like the Tri-Rail. Right. And so yeah, it was definitely, there was a bit of a learning curve the first couple days. But it started out when we were in New York. We kind of got to use the subway, and that was like a warm up. And then once they left, I had to take my first Amtrak to Connecticut. I showed up like 2 hours early, like at the airport, and you don't have to do that. You can show up 5 minutes before. It's fine. So yeah, there's just like a learning curve, but the trains themselves were really cool. Most of the ones I was on had like the cafe cart, so you can get a coffee and some like breakfast.
Cool. I've never been on a train. Never been on any of that stuff.
It was really cool, and like it was January in the Northeast, and we lucked out for the most part with the weather. Like in New York, we got some snow flurries, but nothing too bad, and the boys flew home. And then I went on to Connecticut, and I didn't really get any snow. It was just kind of cold. But I ended up just stumbling. I had a day off. I stumbled upon Yale University, because I didn't even know it was in New Haven. And like they were celebrating the Chinese New Year, and someone was like, "Oh, we're having this event." Like they saw me with my guitar. They're like, "Come play a few songs." I was like,
"Oh my god,
yes. So,
that's awesome!"
So they're on the show list. There is a show where I played at Yale. In a propaganda T-shirt too.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Yeah, so but yeah, going up north to like Brunswick, Maine is where I got like heavy snow. And it was also the city that had the worst public transportation out of all the ones I went to. Like Connecticut was great. Connecticut, the buses were free. Wow. So that was awesome. And then I went to Maine, and I was in Brunswick, Maine, and they don't have buses. And so I had to get an Uber, and I got an Uber, and she dropped me off at a store. I had to get another Uber to get to my hotel, and the same lady showed up. And I was like, "Are you the only Uber driver in this town?" And she said, she's like, "The only Uber drivers here are me and my mom." And I had
it's a family business.
Yeah, I told her, I was like, "Well, hey, like I have to catch this train at 11 a.m. tomorrow. Like, are you gonna be around?" And she ended up just giving me her personal phone number and just said, "Yeah, just call me. I'll come pick you up."
Oh my god, it's hysterical.
It's very weird. And then Boston, we played, I played. It was a Monday night, and the show sold out. Like there were some other local bands that were playing. This one band I fell in love with called Summer Cult. But the place sold out, and I got to I was by my merch table, and I saw somebody try and come in, and the door guy just be like, "We're not taking any more people in." And I was like, "Oh my god." Yeah, I think that's probably the first sold out show that I've ever played at. And
that's awesome.
And it was like a Monday night in like a dart bar in Boston. It was amazing.
Oh my gosh.
And then yeah, so that whole tour, that was amazing. The next one's coming up pretty soon. I have a tour before that in April with Billy Doom Is Dead and The Shake. That's just going to be like a Florida run. And then in May, I'm flying out to Los Angeles and doing the next Amtrak tour from Los Angeles up to Seattle.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I have this thing where I my wallet's somewhere, but in my wallet I have a map, and I cross off every state. And the goal, of course, is to play in every state.
Every state.
I think right now I'm at like 23.
Oh, wow.
I want to break 30 by the end of the year.
I think you will.
So yeah, I'm excited, and it's something that I've been trying. Amtrak seems very open to like collaboration. They were like sharing my stuff while I was tagging them. They were liking it, commenting and stuff. And the first video that I put up's been doing pretty well on YouTube, and so I hope to at some point in the future kind of collaborate with them, because I am, still paying for these trains, and sometimes with the routing, like on the last one, I did have one really bad travel day, and I think it was from Connecticut to Maine, where I had like a 4 a.m. train, and that was pretty rough. But they've been announcing these new trains and stuff, and I don't know how I got targeted for these advertisements. Maybe it was just telling people too much about the idea. But I started getting all these advertisements about these different trains that they're having. These very new, like one of them's like essentially like a 360 view, like it's clear.
Kidding. What?
Yeah, and so like I want to be on that train, like Amtrak, hook it up. I will tell so many people how awesome your trains are if you put me on that. But yeah, so it'll be interesting. The problem that I'm running into right now with the one that's coming up in May is, the longest Amtrak I took on the Northeast one was 3 hours maybe, and I think that was from Connecticut to Maine.
Okay.
My first Amtrak from Los Angeles, California to Redding, California is 13 hours.
You're kidding.
So this one's definitely going to be a bit more of an endurance test.
You're going to have to get a room to take, like one of those things that I see in the movies, the rooms that you can sleep in.
So yeah, they have them. They're called roomettes, and the problem with them, like the whole idea of the Amtrak tour was how can I make a more affordable way to tour,
right?
And that's like my train from Rhode Island to Boston was $7.
Whoa.
Yeah, like it was ridiculous. And that's where, the seat for this 12-hour train ride is still only $50. But if you want like a roomette will run you $600-$700. And
just like, you can sleep sitting up.
Fly. Yeah. Yeah. So that's where, I'm pretty I'm not a very like anxious person. I can sit still reasonably well. Like I like to read.
13 hours. Oh,
yeah, I don't know. But that's also where like I've been talking myself into this still. Where I'm like, well, they have the cafe car and you can kind of walk around. And I have learned from the first trip how to get like my favorite seat on the train.
How's that?
So I noticed very early on that when a train pulls into the platform, most people will be in the area of the first two cars. Nobody really wants to take the effort and walk all the way down to the end before they have to. So what I do is I walk all the way down to the end. So when that train stops and that door opens, I'm already in the last car. And that means I could pick my seat, put a bag to the one next to me. All the other people who walk by and see that the seats are taken and have to go to the back, now they've kind of got to work around me. Right. And that was something I started doing really early on in the Amtrak tour because I was aware of the guitar case because I travel with a hard case on my acoustic, and thankfully the luggage racks on Amtrak's are bigger, so I was able to kind of just throw it up. But like the way they were divided, like this one luggage rack, like this is mine. Like nobody else put stuff in this one because there's a guitar, there's a backpack, and like a gym bag filled with merch. And so, yeah, I kind of started to get lucky with doing it that way. And I think I never really had like somebody sitting next to me at all for all the Amtraks I took. So I'm hoping that will translate to the West Coast. But I've never been the furthest west I've ever been is Denver, Colorado. So California is always, LA's always kind of been just a little bit off my radar. So we'll see how I do there.
So you're married.
Mm-hmm.
What does your wife do when you go on these tours? Does she go with you, or?
So no, she doesn't really get to come on the tours as like the long ones or the real tours, I guess, for lack of a better word. She has come to some out-of-state shows. We did Nashville last year and scheduled a couple extra days so we could do fun stuff. She came for a Florida tour that I did with the Shake. And then just last year also she got to come up to New Jersey and New York when I played there. But as far as coming out for when I'm gone for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, she can't do that. She does have a job here and stuff. And so, I mean, it's tough being away from each other, but thankfully, I always look back at bands from like the 70s or 80s and stuff. The way that they must have had to communicate with their significant other, hotel room phones and stuff like that, where I miss my wife and I FaceTime her.
Right.
And
so that's true.
something,
technology is so much better these days.
It is, and it's something that we definitely utilize a lot, and we try and talk as much as we can when I'm on the road. And then, to some extent, there is also it kind of disrupts your relationship in just the right way that, like, it sounds weird to say it, but like I'm happy with that she misses me when I'm gone. Yeah. And I'm also very happy that she gets excited when I come back. Right. Yeah. So those little moments are very enjoyable, and sometimes worth, the distance. Yeah. For a while. But yeah, I mean, we're hoping that at some point in the future we'll be able to do some traveling together. We never got to have a honeymoon because we did get married during COVID.
You did?
Yeah, and I have been forbidden from playing any shows on our honeymoon. My wife makes a very valid point that I'm terrible at taking vacations, especially if it's somewhere that I haven't played. Like if it's a state that I haven't played, there's no question I'm booking a show. It will happen. Right.
Well, it has to be marked off your list.
Exactly. It has to go off the map.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So it's very tough for me to take vacations. Thankfully, as more states are starting to get filled in, it seems like I can start to relax a little bit. Right. Go some places that maybe I've played already. But yeah. So definitely hoping to get her on the road sometime soon.
Yeah. How did you guys meet, you and your wife?
So this year we will be celebrating 12 years together.
Wow,
awesome. We met in high school when we were 16. And we've been together ever since. Decided to get married last year. We'd been engaged for a while and we're kind of figuring out how to do the wedding, and then it was like in 2020 it was like, well, the world might end tomorrow, so let's just do this.
Oh God.
And it was also kind of that thing of, who are we having this wedding for? Like, is this for other people? Like, because I'm fine just in this room, and so is she. So we'll probably we still want to do some sort of celebration down the line and get everyone together. But we were just happy to get married. And it's been cool.
Yeah, so many people over COVID felt that same way, and they just threw together a real quick my mom's here, your mom's here, whatever type of thing in the living room, and that was it. But you're right. It's whatever you guys want, and that's what it is.
Definitely, and it's something, we are looking at our future and things like that, and it's kind of weddings are expensive, super expensive.
They're not cheap.
And that's where we were just kind of it seems more worth it to us to put that money either toward if we want to use that money as expendable, then let's put it towards a honeymoon. If we want to use that money to grow, well then let's start looking at house or something like that. Yeah. Florida is just so expensive right now. Oh my God, and I'm a realtor. It's brutal. Pretty rough. It's pretty rough. And that's where it's another thing when traveling. I remember I was in Denver. And I remember this guy just kind of coming up to me, and he looked sad. This guy was hurting. He's like, I don't know, man. I can't do it anymore living here in downtown Denver. I was like, oh, man, what do you pay? He's like, I got a 2-bedroom, man. It's $1,500 a month. I'm like, bro, that's West Palm Beach. What are you talking about? You're in Denver, man. And that was just like, it was like a culture shock. And then like we were in Austin, Texas, and we drove by like a gas station or something, and they had now hiring cashiers for $18 an hour. We're just like, what is this place? Like this, Florida does not do that. Yeah, Florida's been making it pretty rough.
It's rough. Yep. So, where would you like to see yourself in, let's say, like two years from now? Where would you like to see yourself?
2 years from now, I'd like to see myself, on tours that might be a little more guaranteed sources of income. I'd like to continue to see the show size grow and to see more people enjoying my music.
Yeah.
I would hope to still be on the road in 2 years. I'll be 30, so how I'm on the road, I'm sure will change. But yeah, I'd like to still be seeing new things and meeting new people and having fun.
Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about the local scene. Do you have a favorite venue that you play at?
Propaganda will always be number one for me.
Mm-hmm.
Matthews Brewing's a really nice venue as well. And then Prosperity Brewers is another one that, okay. His name is also Dominic, which is awesome. He's been very open to allowing original music as well as cover music to come into his venue. And that's so important in our music scene. And it's great that we're starting to see some of these places that are traditionally cover venues transition into original music venues. Fat Cats in Boca has even started doing some nice. More original music and stuff. So, it's always hard to pick a favorite. Propaganda will always have a very special place in my heart.
Right.
So that's probably got to be the one for me.
Okay, so other than the Shake, who's your favorite local band?
Eastway is kind of on the forefront of my head right now because we just played with them in St. Patrick's Day, and they're a band out of Boca. Okay. And somehow the first show I played with them was Prosperity Brewers' 4th anniversary party last year, and we're playing the 5th year anniversary party next month. Together again, and we had met, and I remember texting Ricky that day. I was like, "Hey, I've got a new band for us on events," and told him like, "There's this band Eastway." At the time, I think they only played like 2 or 3 originals. And I was like, "These guys are going to be good," and they are. And now they're working on recording their music and getting it out, and their warehouse is kind of near the Shake warehouse where we all kind of work, so we kind of bounce ideas back and forth and stuff, and so they're coming along amazingly well, and they're already just a monstrous live band. And then there's another band that I just met. We played with at Fat Cats in Fort Lauderdale called Blab Scam, and they're from Lake Worth, and I had never met them before. I guess they're a relatively new band, but they put on an amazing show, and it was something that we have it recorded, and so since then Ricky has shown me some of the stuff that he got out of their set, and it just sounds amazing. And we're actually doing a live Long Live the Scene podcast where we're going to record it live out of Propaganda, and
awesome.
the first episode's going to be Blab Scam, and so I'm going to be hosting that. And talking to those guys and figuring out what they are, because it was like punk, but then it was like surf rock, and
right.
It was kind of ticking all the boxes, and this is going to get me in trouble with a lot of Floridians. They didn't play any reggae, and I loved it. It was great. It was amazing. There are
so you're not a reggae guy.
There's amazing reggae bands down here. There's a lot of them, and I don't know. I just can't. The reggae guitar, it's just, I would get bored. It's just that one. It's not enough for me. Not enough.
I get that.
I need to. My guitars are gross because they get beat up all night.
Right.
But yeah, so these guys, the Blab Scam was absolutely amazing. I can't wait to interview them. I don't know what their name means. Yeah, it's. They were something else for sure. And then Billy Doom is dead. Billy, the way I met Billy was he was originally going to be playing electric guitar for me. he also plays in Spread the Dub, and then he has Billy Doom is Dead, and so he's a pretty busy guy, and there were some shows he couldn't make, and the trio kind of started to work, so that's what we've been going with for right now is just the trio, but we are touring together in April, and his act, Billy Doom is Dead, is just very in-your-face punk rock. They just got to play Culture Room and open for Less Than Jake, and
nice.
yeah, they are just amazing musicians. Their bass player Kevin, super nice. Andy, guitar player, super nice. And I'm excited to be hitting the road with them next month.
That's awesome. Who is like your dream if you were able to open up for somebody? Who would that be?
It would have to be Frank Turner.
Yeah,
100%.
I figured it was
100%. Yeah, and the thing is, so the first Frank Turner gig that I actually got to go to, or at least that I remember going to, was the Menzingers, which is a band out of Philadelphia, the Homeless Gospel Choir, and then this band Lucero. So I saw them, and then later on in that year, this was around the time when I'd started playing again, and I got booked on Sing Out Loud Festival in St. Augustine, and they put me on the same day as the Menzingers.
Oh, that's exciting.
So I was on the same day as the Menzingers, and there was also a band called Hot Water Music, and they're amazing. And they're from Gainesville, and they're super good. But it was great to play with the Menzingers, and then I think it was sometime in maybe 2019, Harley Poe was going to come to West Palm Beach, and the Homeless Gospel Choir was on that show. And I was working on getting that opening gig, too, so I could knock out both of the openers for Frank. Unfortunately, COVID happened and canceled that show, so I didn't get to do it. So, but yeah, no. Yeah. And then
COVID ruined everything.
Oh man, I had a heartbreaking day. So my whole goal of 2019 was to work my ass off and get booked for South by Southwest, and I did it. I worked so hard, and I started playing out of state, and I started meeting people, and I got South by Southwest, and it was a small little showcase in South by Southwest, and I was so proud, and I was ready to go to. It was gonna be my first time in Texas, and COVID canceled it. And I remember I just had the notification because South by Southwest is always in March, and I just got the notification of like the reminder from like 2 years ago. It was like a week before. I remember like knowing like everything was starting to close, and I remember just being like, just let South by Southwest happen. Like, just let it happen. We'll all go home after. Yeah. And then about a week before, they canceled
everything's shut down. Ah, man, that stinks. That stinks.
Yeah, that one hurt a lot.
So have you ever had any, like, what you would consider to be like a groupie or anything like that? Anything crazy? Any stories that you could tell me that would be crazy? Yeah,
I've had some interesting interactions. I have a song called Broken Finger, and it was written and it was written as, it's a funny song, but it was written about a very true instance that happened where I was working at a metal factory and I broke my finger, and the whole thing with counting my shows, I broke my finger around like show number 99, and so show 100 was scheduled and there was no canceling it or moving it, and so I had to play with the broken finger, and that's where like I just kind of like hockey taped it and was like, all right, I'm okay. And I wrote the song, and it was my middle finger that's broken. So sometimes when I'm playing it, especially if I, like, this is really only weird when I don't know the person. It's happened a couple times where I'll be playing it and I'll look up and there's just multiple people flicking me off. And it's very intimidating, especially in a place that, like, if you don't know, people know the song. And then most of the time people will come up and be like, oh, you know, like, we know that people do that during that song. Right. And that's always kind of fun.
But that's pretty cool, though, that they do that. That you're getting flipped off.
I think that, like, a lot of, like, fan interactions, I'm always like, you know, I never want to come across, I've had some weird ones, some peculiar ones, but in most instances, someone is struggling with the society, or, like, with, like, personal boundaries, kind of. Yeah. You know, but they're meaning to pay me a compliment, you know, and so I'm hesitant to ever kind of like poke fun at them But I have had some weird ones, like New Orleans. New Orleans is kind of just New Orleans, and the first time I played there, I was kind of on the wrong bill. I was opening for like this like very heavy metal band, and there were a few streakers, there were a few.
Oh Lord!
It was a very New Orleans scene, and this was prior to getting sober too, so I can't claim any innocence. I was just as guilty as everybody else, but yeah, I've had some weird interactions for sure. There was, so very early on in my career, I started some of the first, gigs that would pay me more than, $50 or something. I got asked to start playing at these festivals, and they're like, "Oh, it's at a naturist resort." I was like, "Oh, I love nature."
Oh no, nudist,
and they were all nudie festivals. Yep. And hey, I'll give it to them though. I'll give it to them. Those guys have a blast. They look cold, but they are having fun. And yeah, I played a handful of them, and I did meet some friends, and it's kind of always odd to see them in public because it's kind of like, I know your secret. But yeah, so I did a few of those, and that's kind of, you're kind of in for seeing something odd. I sell them. Right. I have this friend who I met there. His name is Raul, and he is just an anomaly. It had rained for like 6 hours, and all this wood was wet. And I saw this guy yell at this wood for about 2 hours, and it lit. I'd never seen anything like it.
What?
He yelled
with
this
fire.
With his mind, man. He yelled this fire into existence.
You've got to be kidding.
I wouldn't have believed it if I didn't see it. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen, but that's kind of, I guess, what you get in store for if you go play at naturist festivals.
Yeah, this is true. That's funny. I know you saw it, but I'm still thinking somebody had to have dropped the flame somewhere.
Well, and he looks like he is comically like Tarzan. Like, he is just shredded, beautiful, like curly hair. Like, if anybody could do it, it's definitely him.
That's so funny. So, okay, so what's coming up in this next week? I'm dropping this on Friday. Well, Thursday at midnight, Friday. What can we expect from you this next week? Are there any shows people need to come look out for? What's happening?
There are some shows people need to look out for. So for March, actually, it looks like I'm taking a couple days off. Not going to do any shows next weekend. And that is also partly because our next show is a very big one. April 1st at Matthews Brewing Company in Lake Worth, I'll be playing at 561 Festival.
Okay.
The second, because they did it last year. I got to play last year acoustic, and I'm really excited to bring the full band back this year.
Nice.
It's going to be 20
bands. And that's April 2nd?
April 1st.
April 1st, okay.
April 1st, and that'll be 20 bands. It's $10. You can get your tickets online, and they also come with like a T-shirt that has the whole lineup on it.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's being put on by the 561 Music Podcast, the guys from the Killbillies. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then directly after that, we are going on tour with Billy Doom and The Shake. We're starting off home base Propaganda April 7th. So that'll be the following week. And after that, we're doing a big old circle of Florida. We're going to be in Cape Coral, Sanford, Jacksonville, Daytona, Pompano. And yeah, so that's April's starting to look really cool.
Yeah.
And then I've been running a monthly songwriters night, and that's been at Northwood Art in West Palm Beach. I don't have a date for the next one yet, but it's been on Thursday nights. And
is that like an open mic, or?
So I'm getting songwriters from the area to come and actually play like a 30-minute set of their original stuff.
Awesome.
But I'm always looking for new songwriters, so if there's any watching or if there's any that you know of, send them my way.
I will.
I'd love to have them on. And the idea would to eventually do something like the Long Live the Scene cassette tape with some of the acoustic songwriters that are around our area. So yeah, so that's pretty much how April's looking, and then May, it's off to the West Coast.
That's awesome. And all right, so we talked about your hats. What do you have any other merch that everybody, and where can we find it?
I do. So Bandcamp is a good spot to find it online. It's just dominicdelaney.bandcamp.com. Or if you're at a show, I sell it at shows. You know, honestly, Bandcamp is a great tool for musicians, and Bandcamp Friday is big for everybody. And when they do take a percent, it's not giant. It's not like some of these venues that are taking merch cuts. So if you want to grab it on Bandcamp, that's great. But if you want to pick one up at a show, people can do that as well. We try and keep the merch out all night. And I know we're going to start getting more new merch in. Right now we have it's a Sad Songs Makes Me Feel Good shirt that has that in my logo. Got tons of stickers, CDs.
I need a sticker. I have a mini fridge over there that I put all the stickers of all the bands that I've had on my podcast. So I need a sticker.
I've got you.
I need to get one.
I've got you. And what else do we have? So I don't know what I'm going to do just yet so I have the F Florida hats.
Okay.
And this is great for some younger bands who might be looking to get hats. If you're going to get hats, if you want custom hats, sometimes it's going to be hard to find quality ones for a good price. You're probably going to pay $14 to $15 a hat and have to sell it for $20 to $25 to make some sort of profit. So what I did is I bought hats, and then I bought these. I just bought the patches. And so I just put the hats together myself. And
wait, do you sew the patches on?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, I just sewed them on, and they look great. And I cut my overhead easily in half. By doing that. And so not only does that mean that my profit margin's bigger, but I can sell them for cheaper and still have a good profit margin.
Definitely.
So that's where it's like right now.
Great idea.
Yeah, and so the very first shirts that I had for merch, we would buy white T-shirts, and they have a black T-shirt spray paint, and we used to have a stencil, and it said Dominic DeLaney is my best friend, and we would make them at home, and I think I still have maybe like 20 of them left, but we would do black shirts, white shirts, and that was the original merch. So DIY has always kind of been very important to me. And so that's kind of, you get stuck in these like fun situations where like I have 10 patches left. The hats are made. I can either order more hats, or I could even try and do something else with these. I can, put them on something else, or even sell them as the patches, It's always cool to kind of find new avenues to go down. One of the biggest ones, and since I'm here in my little workstation today, I can show you. This has been one of my biggest projects lately, is I built this.
Nice.
And this was kind of like, I've always liked Legos. So I figured this was like a grown-up version of that.
Right.
It kind of was. And we actually, the first show that I used this was St. Patrick's Day, and it worked. So this kind of sparked the idea. Since like I had to learn how to solder for all the pickups and stuff, now the idea has happened that I'm going to make an F Florida distortion pedal.
Oh my gosh, that's cool.
And so on my Facebook, I put up like a few different graphics that I had made and had people vote on their favorite. And it's kind of like this black with like the teal and pink, like Miami Vice style.
Okay.
And so I have that coming soon, at least to build the prototype, and then hopefully I'll start getting those out. I always thought that would be cool too. Like, if you go see a band, and if you like the way my guitar sounds, you can buy the pedal that I'm using that I made from my merch table. So
cool. God, you're like, these things that you're thinking, I've never heard people think like that. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't have ever.
I think a lot of it is unfortunately out of necessity these days.
Yeah.
With, the first album that I put out had 150,000 streams. For Life right now has around 90,000. And that really doesn't translate into any sort of income. So,
no, it doesn't.
So that's where, the people that buy the physical CDs to show their support, even if you don't use it, I really appreciate it, because that's how you're directly supporting artists. And so that's kind of always that little back and forth has kind of continuously sparked, well, how can I make quality merch? I don't have this unlimited budget where I can give people, the trendy thing of the week. I need to make something that is true to me and relates to the people that I want to target as far as like a market size. So I think like the distortion pedal to me is something that if I went and saw a band that I really liked and they sold their distortion pedal, I'd buy that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, no, that's so that's such a great idea.
Yeah, so it's really just trying to find all those avenues of really just residual income. Residual income is the dream. Just pay so that I can make money to continue to grow the shows.
Exactly.
And stuff. One of the guys who gave me the idea for making the pedal is when we recorded For Life, I had just gotten this pedal, and it's by a guy. His company is called Fuzzamp, and I don't know if you're a fan of The Office or not, but so this is my distortion pedal.
Oh my God, how cool is that?
And I saw this. I saw it, and he's like, yeah, I hand build them and all this stuff, and I just didn't understand. It was another thing where I was like, you can do that, and that's where he's like, yeah, he's like, I just get the graphic made and slap it on the thing I build, and I sell them, and I was like, that's amazing. So, but yeah, it's also a great distortion pedal that I have tweaked a little bit. So the one that I'm building is very similar to that one, but I changed. I had to learn about resistors and capacitors and all this crazy stuff I never thought I'd be messing with. I didn't go to college. But yeah, building guitars and stuff, that's another thing I'm going to continue to do. I'm starting to grow my own YouTube channel a little more. I didn't really care too much for it in the past, so I'm starting to get up more tour diaries. I'm going to do some videos with the guitar build and the pedal build as well, and start trying to monetize that.
That is so neat. I love that. I just wouldn't even know where to start to build a guitar, though. There's a couple of guys I've had on here that have built guitars, and I've watched, they've put it on their Instagram page, steps and stuff. It's so amazing. And I'm like, I can't even believe it actually makes that sound, because then they'll play it after they're finally finished. And I'm like, oh my God, it's amazing. Because I didn't go to college either.
You're right. It was really cool. It was definitely something that you have to be able to walk away from. And that was an issue I was starting to have, because I had finished putting everything together, and I'd plug it in and it wouldn't work. And the problem with that is now, if you've got strings, the neck, the pick guard, if you've got everything on it and it doesn't work, now you got to take everything back off.
Oh no!
Apart.
I'd stop.
I did it twice where I had to do it like that, and that's when I was like, you know what? I'm going to wire everything, and then before even putting strings on it, I'm going to plug it in and just poke it and see if it works. And then eventually, I also had to learn about, there's a tool that's called a multimeter, and it checks the connection and the grounding of everything in there. So I had to get that, learn how to use that, as well as the soldering gun, so that I could melt all the. It was a lot to learn, but it was a lot of fun, and it ended up working. So.
And you got to use the guitar, and it worked.
I got to use it. Yep.
That's
and
awesome.
It's purple. It's my favorite color.
Oh, okay, that's nice. Yeah. So before we go, where can everybody find you? Your Instagram, Facebook. Where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm pretty much Dominic DeLaney everywhere. Instagram, I'm at Dominic DeLaney. Facebook, it might be Dominic DeLaney Music, if you type in a link. But if you just search Dominic DeLaney, you'll find me. TikTok, I'm starting to kind of figure out, and that's Dominic DeLaney Music. Not great at it. Not consistent at all, but I'm there.
Me neither.
YouTube is Dominic DeLaney, and then Twitter is Delaney Dominic, because I guess when I was 10, I made Dominic DeLaney and forgot the password. So now I'm Delaney Dominic on Twitter.
God. That's so funny.
Yeah, and then
my mom's got like 75 Facebook pages because she can't remember her password for any of them. So
yeah, I'm definitely one of those people too. Like now I have like I'm so old. I have to like in my journal I write down my passwords because I can't remember them anymore.
Yep.
But yeah, so I'm pretty much everywhere as far as music. On Spotify, it's just Dominic DeLaney. It's on Amazon Music, Apple Music, really all of it. Like Deezer, Tidal. Tidal apparently is the best one for supporting artists. I didn't know that.
Okay.
I guess they pay out the most, but
really,
I haven't seen anything. The problem, that's kind of one of the things. I could go into like releasing the last album independently. I could go to DistroKid and I could see where it's performing well. But like even they say like this is excruciating detail. Like there's some things like you can look at this, but you really don't need to.
Right.
And so I don't. But maybe I should.
Maybe. Okay. So I mean I really enjoyed talking to you. You're very interesting. I mean I wish that we could just sit. We'll have to I'll have to come out to one of your shows and then we'll sit and chat again. I would love to see you play live on your built guitar. And so before we go though, is there anything that you would want to say to your fans? Anybody, any bands that are watching? Any advice?
Don't wait for a green light. Just go. If you want to tour, book one. If you want to play out, book those shows. And if you don't know where to start with that, start at dodiy.org and pick a city. And that's pretty much it. You can just pick a city, find a promoter, and put something together.
Oh, good advice. That's really good advice because I was going to ask you, like, what do you do when you do that? So that's good advice. Okay, and what do you have to say to your fans?
Thank you. Thank you for listening to my music. Thank you for finding a part of your life in songs that I've written about my life. And I think that's gives me a little bit of hope that we can all find common ground in different areas of our existence.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. I love that. Okay. All right. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed sitting down and looking at you through my screen here. But I'm glad we got it put together. Yeah. And I'm definitely going to make it out to a show of yours. And like come out to one of my events. I'm going to come to yours. And good. No, I really, really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm sure you're inspiring many people through your music, your sobriety, everything. So it's a big thing. So, but
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure talking to you. I'm so happy to have met you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dominic.